Hello and welcome to Nikolay's genetics lessons, and today's question is: which of the following violate the assumptions of Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? And here's a Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium where frequency of the three genotypes equal to p squared plus 2pq plus q squared, and all the three genotypes, if we add them, would equal to 1 or 100%. And in this equation, p squared stands for the homozygous dominant genotype, 2pq stands for the frequency of the heterozygous genotype, and q squared stands for the frequency of the homozygous recessive genotype. And as you see, in this gene pool, we have only two alleles, dominant allele A and recessive allele A, which can make these three genotypes. So imagine that this is our gene pool where we have only dominant and recessive alleles, which can, as you see, make different genotypes. And frequency of these three genotypes would depend on how many in our gene pool we have dominant alleles and recessive alleles. According to Hardy-Weinberg assumptions, in order for the frequency of the three genotypes be stable from one generation to another generation, we should now have mutation in such population, because otherwise frequency of the dominant allele and recessive would change, or we also can get another allele, for example A prime or A2, A3. So each mutation can shift a little bit frequency of these alleles in this gene pool. So the first assumption, there shouldn't be mutation in order for the three genotypes to be stable from generation to generation, so their frequencies should not change. And of course, one assumption would be that there shouldn't be a mutation in such population. And let's check random mating. Of course, if we have random mating, then it's also meet requirements of Hardy-Weinberg assumptions, because in random mating we expect that this ratio also going to be stable from one generation to another one. But imagine if mating would be not random or assortative mating. For example, let's say that there are going to be some animals with large horns that would prefer to mate only with those with large horns. Then those with small ones, the frequency of their genotypes would gradually decrease from generation to generation. So there have to be random mating in order to meet requirements of the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Let me skip variant C for now. Variant B, no selection. Just like non-random mating, selection leads to shift in allelic frequencies. If we select, let's say this is going to be animals or plants for certain trait, then the frequency of the allele that specifies this trait would increase, and frequency of the other allele would decrease, and we are not going to see stable frequency of the three genotypes over the generations. They are going to change. So no selection is going to be one of the assumptions in order for the population frequency of the genotypes to be stable from one generation to another one. And little or no migration would be another assumption, because migration would cause also allelic changes. For example, imagine from other group animals came who have more dominant alleles than recessive, and such migration would change allelic frequency in this group. So all these assumptions which have to be present in this population in order for population to be stable. But small size population is a wrong assumption, because small size population just due to random chance may lead to shift in allelic frequency. So we assume in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium that population have to be infinitely large or very large. So this is going to be our choice. This variant is wrong. Population have to be very large or infinitely large, and small population cause, just due to random chance, change in allelic frequencies in a population. And next question, in human population, the genotype frequencies at one locus is 0.5 for dominant genotype, 0.4 for heterozygous genotype, and 0.1 for homozygous recessive genotype. The frequency of the dominant allele in this population is, and the calculations are going to be very easy. Take a look. In the heterozygous genotype, we have both dominant allele A and recessive allele A. So half of the alleles would be dominant and half would be recessive. So we take half of this number, which is 0.2, and add here. So this is going to be dominant allele, and we are going to get 0.7 is going to be a frequency of the dominant allele A, and half of this number, which is again 0.2, would be recessive allele A. And when we add with this frequency, we are going to get 0.3. This is going to be frequency of the recessive allele A. And our question about dominant allele. The frequency of the dominant allele A is going to be 0.7 or 70%. And this is all for today. Subscribe and see you in the next video. Goodbye.